cryptocurrency investor is in a New York jail today, charged with kidnapping a 28-year-old man and keeping him locked up for weeks in an upscale Manhattan townhouse. Investigators say John Waltz tortured the victim, even dangling him over a ledge at one point in a desperate attempt to gain access to his Bitcoin wallet. Now, that victim was eventually able to escape. A lot to unpack here. Let's bring in CNN's Gloria Pazmino in New York. Just walk us through exactly what we know about what sounds like a very, very frightening experience for this victim.
Not only that, Becky, but really a disturbing and bizarre set of details. John Waltz is the suspect that is accused of luring a man into this luxury Manhattan apartment in the Soho neighborhood over the last several weeks and holding him hostage there, torturing him all over an alleged plot to get him to give up his Bitcoin password. The man you're seeing there on your screen is John Waltz. He is 37 years old, originally from Kentucky, and prosecutors say that he lured this man into this apartment and for several days tortured him by tying him up with wire, at one point shocking him with a taser while his feet were on water, dangling him over a railing and threatening to kill his family if he did not give up this password. Now, one thing that's not yet clear to us, Becky, is how these two men knew each other. We don't know if they had a personal or a business relationship and exactly how much money this whole scheme was over. But we are told by prosecutors and police that at one point last Friday, the victim, who has not been identified, 28 years old, finally, he thought that he was about to be killed. He gave up the password, which then made the suspect go into another room to get a computer, and that gave him a brief window of time that allowed him to escape the apartment, run out to the street, and flag down a traffic cop. That's how he was able to get the attention of law enforcement here in the city. He was able to go to a hospital where he received treatment, and police moved into that apartment and arrested this suspect, John Waltz. Upon arriving to that residence, which, by the way, happens to be in a very ritzy Manhattan neighborhood, police found a treasure trove of evidence. We are told that they found ammunition, cocaine, an electric saw, which the victim said he was threatened with, the chicken wire that he was tied up with, body armor, night vision goggles, and they also found Polaroid photos of the victim tied up with a gun pointed to his head. Now, prosecutors have asked that John Waltz is held without bail. He was ordered to surrender his passport. Prosecutors telling the court on Saturday that they believed he had the means, including a private helicopter and a private jet, to make escape, and that is why they were requiring him to be held without bail. He has not yet entered a plea and is expected back in court. Becky, I think several other outstanding questions in this case, including how these two men knew each other and whether or not, what kind of business they were doing together, if at all, and this whole Bitcoin angle, which we have seen similar incidents in recent weeks with cryptocurrency investors being targeted in violent attacks. Becky?
Yeah, not least in France, and I'm going to do a little bit on that now, but for the time being, Gloria, thank you for that. France has also been hit with a string of crypto-related crimes, including abductions and attempted kidnappings. Earlier this month, the daughter and young grandson of a crypto tycoon barely escaped being kidnapped by several masked bandits in broad daylight in Paris. Her father is the CEO of the crypto firm Paymium. Also this month, the father of a cryptocurrency executive in Paris was abducted and later rescued, but lost a finger during the ordeal. Well, let's welcome our next guest. Carol Alexander is a finance professor at the University of Sussex and a crypto expert. She joins me now from southern France, my alumni. It's good to have you on. Thank you. We are seeing a wave of violent crime targeting the so-called crypto rich. We've just been reporting on that home invasion in the US, kidnappings in France. Why are those with digital wealth so vulnerable to what feels like, these very analog threats? Can we just explain what's going on here?
Well, It's not entirely new. I mean, this type of kidnapping has been going on for actually a decade, and in 12 countries so far. But you're right, the recent ones in Paris were particularly upsetting, and of course, this is even worse. I mean, it shows that the type of there's so much crime in crypto. What we see a lot of are these computer geeks, hacking the exchange Bybit, lost 1.5 billion, the biggest hack in history. But we also see money laundering and this sort of thing. But this violent crime, I think, is linked to the price of Bitcoin and other crypto. It's become, the last year it's grown 50%, and the year before. So there is the incentive as well. And then we're also seeing more of it because it's easier to trace the actual, when it happens, it's easier to find the perpetrators than it used to be.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because you've argued that many of these kidnappers aren't especially sophisticated. Law enforcement can now trace crypto transactions with remarkable speed, yet attacks aren't stopping.
Exactly.
In fact, they seem to be rising. Why is that? If the currency, and I talk to people, again and again in the industry who say, look, the security's there, currency can be traced, it can be retrieved. So it does seem odd that these heists, as it were, of individuals continue.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are both, criminals both sides. There's somebody with 100 million worth of crypto and another person with 30 million worth of crypto. And so, maybe there's an incentive for the kidnappers to think, well, maybe their victim will not go to the authorities. It's only if they go to the authorities that you can get the ransom back, like the first case in January in France. And then the French authorities, and particularly the Italian and obviously the US, the whole Bitcoin reserve is 23 billion worth now of Bitcoin, was all in seized and forfeited things. But it's only really recently that that's been happening. So maybe they're just, a little bit behind the curve. And this scale, 100 million or 30 million, you'd understand it if it was just a small scale hack of, somebody stealing their friend's crypto worth, I don't know, 500,000 or something. But this is something unprecedented.
Yeah, these numbers are huge. I mean, when you say if it was just, somebody nicking their mate's 500 grand, I mean, the scale of these numbers just seems absolutely remarkable to me. Look, crypto owners watching, and there may be many of them out there, small holders, many of whom will have never thought themselves as targets. What are the steps that they should be taking to protect both their digital wealth, and their wallets, and their physical safety?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's been a lot of hacks. The Coinbase exchange has lost a lot of customer details. And that's the main US exchange. So you definitely need to protect your wallet on the Coinbase exchange. I actually was scammed and I lost my Coinbase portfolio through such a thing. But it's better now. And the other type of thing you can do is to have what we call a cold wallet. So don't keep your MetaMask wallet, which is the main Ethereum wallet, or other types of Bitcoin wallets that you have connected to the internet. Put them on a USB and then hold them aside. But, if you have an account on an exchange, you are always vulnerable to your, maybe the exchange goes bust, like FTX. That was another thing that I lost, FTX went bust. They have custody. It's not like normal exchanges. If you've got, you have the credit risk of the exchange. If the small exchanges hacks and you're using some not very well, totally unregulated exchange, then it's your own risk.